This classic whistle-stop presentation is brought to you by Out West. Love the West? So do we. Click the icon or go to scvoutwest.com.
How long would it take to build something like this?
That is a question that doesn't have a simple answer because so many of our builders vary in their ability. We have had people assemble our locomotives in 60 days, and that is sort of the record around here for a person to be able to get done. And then otherwise, people are able to work on them at their own pace, and many times we'll have a person spend approximately a year assembling his locomotive. And then again, as I said, we can also provide a ready-to-run locomotive for a person. Now, a project of this size is considerable, and for instance, if you would decide to build a locomotive and send us an order, you wouldn't want to have a large box of parts dumped on your doorstep because that's an enormous amount of pieces. And so we have divided our locomotives up into sections that produce a logical and orderly assembly. And so if a person were to build this locomotive, there are 18 sections, beginning with the frame section, going to the spring rigging, the drivers, the cylinders, the cylinder accessories, and proceeding through until a person gets finally to the boiler, which we sell in a finished and tested condition. I might mention there that steam boilers, being the heart of the engine, are one of the most important aspects of the engine. And the safety of the steam boiler is paramount concern to anyone in this hobby. So we only sell boilers completed and tested to twice their working pressure. As a person proceeds, we are able to guide him through it, and through the engineering drawings that we provide, all the information is available, and consequently we have a very good relationship with our builders, and people all over the United States and the world are building our engines. We have sent engines as far as Australia and Japan.
Then Dan showed Frank the diesels.
Well, Frank, the hobby is called live steam and live steam railroading. But if you confine yourself simply to steam locomotives, you cut off an awful lot of railroading, especially the modern railroading. Because largely since World War II, railroading to most people has meant diesel locomotives. And this and the other locomotives that we build are our entries into this field. This chassis system 7402 is a model of a GP40 locomotive, which is a medium-sized road locomotive like is used on many railroads in the United States, again, trying to get a sort of a nationwide appeal. And it has been a very popular operating locomotive for largely the same reasons that diesels replaced steam locomotives on the real railroads. These locomotives, to do the same kind of work that steam locomotives did, this is what came about. And so for people of our generation and especially for people just coming to the hobby, young people and all, this locomotive is very typical of what they're used to thinking about locomotives being. Also, steam locomotives have a lot more maintenance and care necessary for the locomotive than a diesel locomotive does. These diesel locomotives are actually operated with a gasoline engine driving a hydraulic transmission to get the power to go forward. We can offer them in any railroad color scheme, or a lot of our customers design their own color schemes and have us paint them, especially, they're private, Bob and Henry's Railroad and that sort of thing. And we even have one that's painted in pink because the man was giving it to his wife and that was her favorite color, and to keep her happy was his objective because that let him spend more time with the hobby. But these locomotives are very powerful. They will pull enormous loads of cars, get excellent traction. As you can see from this locomotive, we have 4 driving axles, and all of the axles in the locomotive are powered, so you get enormous traction. They've been excellent machines.
These would be more used like at amusement parks or something more geared for that.
Yes, we have a number of them working at amusement parks, paying passengers, and also people that have a track at their own home generally will have a diesel locomotive because you can get out, and if you have house guests, for instance, or the family comes to visit or something like this, you can, on a moment's notice, take them out and give them a train ride. Where with a steam locomotive, like we were seeing earlier, you have to go out and put water in the boiler and build a fire, and it would take a person an hour to get steam up.
You had a historical engine, something that looked like the General, that was used from the Civil War?
I'd be very happy to show you. That's our original pride and joy, and a very historic engine.
This is the American?
Yes. That, Frank, is because this wheel designation, locomotives are known by their wheel designation. And this locomotive has 4 small wheels in front, 2 on each side, 4 driving wheels, 2 on each side, and no small wheels behind the driving wheels, so it is known as a 440, and a 440 is an American. This locomotive here is our model of Central Pacific's number 173. Now you might ask or might wonder why we chose that particular locomotive. The reason is really that this particular locomotive existed clear up in the 1930s, although it was constructed in the 1860s. But it was used for quite a long time and was drawn so that the engineering drawings still exist for this, and we know very accurately how it was constructed. In the California State Railroad Museum at Sacramento, they have the older brother of this locomotive, Central Pacific number 1, and we've made comparisons between this locomotive and number 1 and have been quite pleased with how similar the locomotives have been. But this was the first model that we built, and there again we sell it as a kit or as a ready-to-run locomotive, and it is our largest selling locomotive and generally has the greatest appeal to the most people because it is typical of locomotives that ran during the 1860s, during the Civil War, and many people, when they think of old-time railroads, this is the sort of thing with the balloon stack, the oil-fired headlight, touches of brass here about the locomotive, and a wooden cab and running boards. It really gives it a lot of color and is quite an attractive piece. We have one of these that was constructed here recently, and the fellow uses it as it's kind of a showpiece in his living room, really. It's quite something. But we've tried to reproduce as much detail as we can.
It shows. It's wonderful. Good detail. Good detail. And the bell rings.
Yes.
And you could actually use coal or wood in this.
Yes.
Besides oil.
The steam locomotives we've looked at so far have been both oil-fired, but this locomotive is generally thought of as a coal-fired locomotive, as was the original one. You could use wood, but generally coal burns a little bit better and gives a better result.
Cars. Could we see some cars?
Oh yeah, we've got a lot of cars too.
Good.
Okay.
Very good.
Well, Frank, as you can see, this is one of our cabooses. And this caboose was commissioned by a gentleman that his railroad is named the San Juan Valley Railroad because he lives in the San Juan Valley. And like most of our custom cars, the roof is removable and there's a riding seat inside for the brakeman. So these cars are built for us on a custom basis by a woodworker that is on our staff. And there we have a stock car that he also built. And basically he can pattern after any sort of car that a person wishes. And we built some quite interesting cars. Now this car below us here is one of our all-metal gondolas and is a very rugged. It's made of 1/8-inch aluminum plate and castings, and it's a very durable car. And you can put riding seats in that. So those are a couple of examples of what we build in freight cars. We have the modern Bettendorf style trucks, and also we build the antique type of arch bar trucks that have not really, they were never used during this century. They were removed from service in the end of the 19th century. We have people that bring in a photograph or a drawing of a car, and then we will produce the engineering drawings necessary that enable us then to build the cars and can go from there. Passenger cars, freight cars, special purpose cars. We had one gentleman that wanted to have an ice chest very close at hand, and so we built a boxcar type car that had a hinged lid and was insulated on the inside to store cold beverages while he rode his train. So it's a hobby that allows a person to exercise a great deal of individual choice and freedom. Most people belong to clubs that have a club track layout because the expense and trouble of building a track is quite extensive. And by joining a club and participating with the members in a club track, a person can get the benefits of that and learn a great deal more.
A lot of knowledge. Share that knowledge. Thank you, sir. All right.
For more information on live steam, may we suggest, so you want to build a live steam locomotive, the Railroad Supply Catalog and Live Steam Monthly Magazine.
Shop, look, and listen right here at WhistleStopUSATV.com.